Greetings, everyone. We're going to start shortly. We want to make sure that we have everybody in. Let me come in. And all right, we just promoted Althea to panelist. Okay. All right, there you are. So we'll go ahead and we're starting about 1 second to make sure that everybody gets to join. We've got some great content, great information for all of you. And we saw you, Althea. You look good on camera. So I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So greetings. I hope everyone's enjoying their day today. On behalf of the SBDC, we want to welcome everyone. We've got a lot of great content for you today. We've got some really great panelists as well. And the goal of what we're going to be doing today is to make sure for all of you that are interested in doing business with the federal government, state or local, that we provide you some great information and so forth. Hello, Jenny Slay. Great seeing you here as well. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start sharing my screen so that we can go ahead and get started. So let me make sure I close a couple of these screens here. All right. And we'll get the introductions started. All right. So here we go. All right. So as I made mention of, today we're going to be talking about doing business with the government. And we've got a great presentation for you. We've got some great people that are going to be sharing, some great panelists. Looks like we all got some new headshots as well that we're sharing and so forth, which is good. So we're going to go ahead and just give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. So we're going to go ahead and start with Jonelle. So Jonelle, if you can share with the participants who you are, what you do, and all that great stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite for being a part of the session today. My name is Janelle Hine. I'm the district director here in the SBA's North Florida district office, which is headquartered in Jacksonville. We cover the upper 43 counties in the state. What I do is make sure that we are providing and promoting SBA programs across our territory.
All right, thank you. And then we also have Dr. Karen Vieira.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Karen Vieira. I'm owner of The Med Writers. We do medical writing. We are a government contractor and subcontractor. Super excited to share my experiences with you today. You don't have to learn all the mistakes. Just learn from me because I've made them all.
All right, thank you. And then Althea Harris.
Hey friends, nice to see you all. I see you also have a nice new headshot. I like it, and I like yours, Janelle. Just putting that out there. Hi, Dr. Vieira. I'm Althea Harris. I'm the Deputy District Director here in South Florida SBA. We cover everything south of Orlando, and I'm happy to say we are the #1 producing district office in the nation for loans guaranteed by the SBA to small businesses.
Yay.
Thanks.
Thank you. And one of the things that we're going to actually encourage all of you, just to let you know, Orlando Espinosa with M&L Media. One of the things that I love to do is to build relationships and to actually connect with like-minded people, especially when it comes to taking your business to the next level. One thing that we want to highlight is that this is being recorded. It will be uploaded. It will be shared. You can actually use the chat or the Q&A for questions. We're going to be monitoring. We're going to be answering some of them live. Others, we're going to be responding to them live as well, but in the chat. So feel free to ask questions. The goal is for you not to overthink and overcomplicate. As Karen made mention of, a lot of people have gone through this process, and the goal for us as business owners is to make sure that each and every one of you understand the importance of doing business with the government, but also not overcomplicating it. So you're going to get a lot of messages within the chat, registering if you need help, guidance, assistance, connecting with us on LinkedIn for any further questions or any other help that you may need. So let's move forward and let's start talking about the importance of diversity with the government. And as always, we're still using the same, tactic. If you want to, panelists, you want to respond, unmute yourself, and whoever unmutes first is going to be the first one that I'm going to call on. So with that being said, one of the key things that we all talk about, and we've heard other people say, is that the government buys what you sell. But you need to ask yourself, do they really? This is where you're going to actually have to come in and have an idea of what it is that you offer as a business owner, what products or services that you have. And the goal is making sure that as business owners, you see that we actually have this nice little image here so that you can see the importance of what the government spends when it comes to small businesses and the percentages more so of who they actually work with. We are going to talk about some of these other things when it comes to certification. But one of the key things that we always talk about is who your competitor is, who is providing the same products or services to the actual government. And a lot of times as business owners, we don't start asking the needed questions, but the goal is to make sure that as a business owner, you understand that there are resources out there and there are opportunities out there. Just keep in mind that the reason why I made mention of the aspect of the relationship is keep in mind that the people that buy for the government are actual people. They are individuals. And the goal for them is to make sure that whatever product or services that you have that the government needs, that's why it's extremely important that you understand if you're eligible to do business with the federal government. All right. So we're going to open it up now to the panelists. Anyone that wants to go first, and I'm looking right now to see who's the first one to unmute. And they're up. Althea.
Hey. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. And I just wanted to hit the nail a little harder on the fact that the federal government wants to do business with you, particularly if you are a small business. One of the things we understand in government is that small businesses are vital to our national economy, our state economies, and our local economies. What we also know is that small businesses have the innovations and the agility and the speed to meet some of the demands of government. And we want those innovations for us, right? For our use and benefit. In addition to meeting these goals for small businesses, when small businesses grow and do well, they create jobs that sustain our communities. So it's in government's best interest to support small businesses. And so if you're considering the federal marketplace as a place you want to do business, I encourage you to listen in. And the thing I've been saying a lot lately is resist the temptation to leave early. Leave early with your mind or leave early with your feet. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Althea. I think that that's one of the key things that as business owners, sometimes a lot of this can seem overwhelming, but one of the key things that we want to make sure is that you not only ask questions, but that to Althea's point, listen, Jonelle.
Well, I was going to say, to piggyback on what you were just saying, is that it doesn't have to be a lonely journey. There are people out there to help you. The SBDC at FIU obviously has individuals who are called Apex accelerators that are working actually for getting paid partly by the Department of Defense to help you get into the federal marketplace, to get you known as a vendor. But those questions that are on the screen are important. You don't want to tackle this just because you know that someone might be able to utilize your program and service. Althea's right. You have to define who which agency you want to target, and it should be targeted. It can't be something that's a scatter shot. You've got to have a plan behind this. And I think that's where those services from not only the SBDC and the Apex Accelerators, but others in your community can really assist you in making sure that you have a defined plan that will in fact make you successful.
Yeah, and thank you, Janelle. And keep in mind, for a lot of you that may not be in the South Florida area, but you may be throughout the state or in other locations, Puerto Rico and so forth, there are offices there. The goal is to make sure that you register. And once you're registered, they will come in and allocate you and assign you to the area where you're located and so forth. Dr. Vieira.
Yeah, so for me, what this slide reminds me of is in the beginning when I was looking at, can my company become a government contractor? And I was terrified. It sounded scary. I was like, it's just one little me At the time, all my employees were 1099, so they weren't employees, they were contractors. And we were doing business with smaller corporations for the most part, a couple freelance type contracts with some bigger corporations. I was like, I can't do business with the government. I'm too tiny, too tiny. They work with big corporations. They would never work with me. And just the word government just felt like, oh, so scary. But one of the things that really helped me was to remember it's not the government. What is the government? The government is made up of people, just as any other corporation. I used to have a corporate job before I started my business. And, you know, when I worked for big corporate with over 10,000 employees, what was the big company? It was all of us. Every single one of us made up that company. So I'm sure every single one of you knows someone that works for government. My sister is a government employee. I have lots of other friends and family that are government employees. And it got a little less scary when I stopped thinking of the government and started thinking of people I knew that were government employees. You now know Althea and Jonelle, and they are government employees, and they're super fun and awesome. And I know them personally, and they give hugs, and they're really personable and approachable. So it's not the government. It's like these awesome people that work for government that really want us small businesses to succeed. So just wanted to put that spin on things.
Yeah,
And if I may,
go
just
ahead.
add to that really quickly. And that, thank you for noticing that we're people, right? And so that's important because when you approach government, some of the things, you know, like over the years that I've been here, I hear people approaching government from an entitlement standpoint. And that is not a wise attitude to take about government contracting, because if you're a taxpayer, you're no different from all the other taxpayers who want a contract. So entitlement's not the way to go when you're thinking about approaching government. Be thinking, have the right perspective, and that is be focused on what value you add. Because remember I said that government wants to do business with small business because we want, right? I'm talking about me. I'm talking about not necessarily me, but you know, an employee like me who needs the value that you offer to us from your product or service. So be mindful of that you want to think about, if you were in my shoes or a contracting officer's shoes, what would you want to know about your product or service? What would you want to know about your reliability, dependability? What would you want to know about your quality and your price, right? So I really appreciate you bringing that up, Dr. Vieira, because government is a collection of people on mission to benefit the nation and her citizens. And so if you can remember that when you're offering your product or service to another individual, just be mindful that's what we're thinking about. Thanks.
And thank you. And I'm going to go to the next slide, but we already have a question from Marilyn. So Marilyn imports lights from Asia. Can she sell to the government? She's been in business for 6 years. So I asked the question because this helps us come in here and assess before you leap. Okay, so does anybody want to address that question before we come into, you know, oh, listen, all three of you, bang, bang.
What was the question? Just repeat the question first.
So the question is, so they import lights from Asia, and can they sell to the government? They've been in business for over 6 years.
I would say the answer is it depends. It depends on what the lights are. It depends on whether they meet the specifications of any particular contract. It depends on whether or not the government wants those lights. So a lot of it is dependent on the research that they need to do, which is, I think, what this slide is going to talk about.
Exactly. And keep in mind that that's one of the key things that we want you, before you come in, listen, there's a lot of people out there that all they talk about, oh, do business with the government. You can make millions, you can make millions, you can make millions, because in essence, what they're doing is they're selling their services to you. Now, the key thing that what we want to talk about is that you need to be very practical and realize what is it that I can actually sell. And is it the products or is it services? Because the federal government, state and local, they buy, you know, what depending on what they need. But this is one of the key things that we always encourage a lot of people to do. You need to start researching. You need to start building those relationships. You need to start looking at how can I start building these relationships with people that are government employees to assist and help us, because they're people too. So talk to the people. Once you come in and look at that specific response that Jonelle just gave, I think that one of the key things is understanding that the answer's out there. So one of the key things, very simple for a lot of business owners, is you look at what the government buys and they buy everything. Okay, I've heard this before, from paper clips to helicopters. Okay, and I don't know if I'm quoting, but I'm quoting somebody. But this is where you have to come in and realize that the first thing is, if you're committed, then you are going to actually have to do the research, and you are going to actually have to ask the questions. And what we're trying to do within these workshops is to simplify a lot of this information for all of you, so that you don't go crazy thinking that you're going to come in and have things handed to you. But what we want to do is make sure that you know that there's going to require some work to do, but there is opportunities. And Jody, yes, they've been in construction for over 30 years. Can you do business with the government? Absolutely. Althea.
Yes, of course you can, Jody. Not only do you have longevity, you've got in the industry, you've got the hopefully the expertise as well. But one of the things I wanted to mention, and maybe Dr. Vieira could speak to this as well, as a successful contractor to the federal government, and that is, okay, it's not enough. It's not enough that you're committed. You have to be able to afford a federal contract or any other contract, right? So you can be, you know, as aspirational as you want. You can dream to have a government contract, but you have to also be able to afford the contract, because we don't pay up front necessarily. So you've got to be able to finance that contract until you get paid for the contract. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and thank you. And Althea, the post that you put there, make sure that you put everybody, because you just put it to the host and the panelists. I think that is great. All right, go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I'll share some experience. When I was assessing, can I get a government contract? My thought process really was, who buys what I sell? When do they buy it? How do they buy it? For how much do they normally buy it for? Like, these were a lot of questions I had to work through, and it took time. The answers weren't like super snappy. We're going to show you all this, so don't get overwhelmed. But there are certain websites, depending on whether you're looking at city, county, state, or federal, will walk you through. My company personally does business with the federal government. I found them so much easier to work with than city, county, and state. But that is my personal experience. When I did my assessment, I found that federal government bought what I sell a lot more frequently than city, county, or state did. And they tend to pay better. So that was my results of my assessment. But I had to dig. I had to look and see what contracts had been issued previously, to who, for what amounts. What kind of work were they expecting? Are we able to do that work? Are we able to really show that we've done that type of work before for other companies or other organizations? It was really a lot of digging to figure this stuff out. And once the answer was yes, it didn't mean I ran out there and got my first contract. There was about, I would say, a gap of 2 years between when I said, yeah, I actually think I could get a government contract, and when I got my first government contract. Now, why the gap? Because it was a steep learning curve, because I was used to corporate life, and I was used to working with small businesses, medium-sized businesses. The federal government is completely different. They have their own language. They have their own way of doing things. I had to get up to speed. I had to learn how to put together a winning proposal. I might be a fantastic writer. I might be fantastic at medical writing, what I do. I might be fantastic as a scientist, my training, but I was not fantastic at putting together a federal proposal or a federal bid. It took time to learn that skill. And just like you're on a webinar today, I sat on many webinars learning how to write good proposals. So once I said, yes, I can do the work, they do have contracts that I think I can get, I did not instantly show up and get one. It was a learning curve until I figured it out and got my first one. And like Althea said, they do not pay upfront. You have to have money in the bank to pay payroll, pay whatever material expenses, etc. You're going to have to pay for upfront, and then you invoice at the end of every month. They have to approve that invoice, and then a 30-day clock begins where they have 30 days to pay you as a small business. And if I have had this experience, if they don't pay in that 30 days and they pay late, they will pay you with interest. So I have to say that I don't have any other clients that do that.
Right. Awesome. So Jonelle.
Well, I was going to say, you can tell from what Karen is saying that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to think of it that way. You know, everyone wants to go and get that first $1 million contract, but many times you're building a past performance history that's going to get you further and further down the line when you're doing this. And that's whether it's city, county, state, or federal. So again, you have to be mindful and targeted in what you're doing, who you're working with. And I also want to add on, I know that Althea and Karen have talked about the money aspect, but you have to have the resources as well to perform on that contract. The worst thing you can do is get a contract and not perform well on it, because it will keep you from probably getting other contracts, because you get a rating at the end of each contract. And if that rating is not good, it will keep you from being desirable, if you will, for further contracts in the federal government. So those are all things that you need to take into consideration when you're doing this. Do you have the wherewithal? It's not just your individual commitment, but does your team have that? If you don't have a team, do you need to have a teaming agreement? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but you know, these are all things and steps that you need to do in your assessment of your business to make sure that you can be successful with this.
All right, thank you for that. So this is where it's extremely important. So some of you were asking questions of how to research the marketplace. So when you look at, remember, every entity, whether federal, state, and local, they have, you know what, a location specifically where you can actually look and find any information when it comes to doing business. Now, this is where I highlighted earlier and said that it was extremely important that you start building these relationships, because I do business with local. It has worked great for me with city, with municipalities, with the county. I've been doing work with them. I've also done federal work as well. But I think that that's one of the key things, and state. But I think that this is where I come in and I sat back and realized that I needed to figure out who were the decision makers and who was providing what when it came to services that they needed for training, for curriculum, for anything like that. And I think that the one thing that opened up my eyes was that I talked to a lot of people within the federal government. And remember, I said people. I talked to a lot of them, and a lot of them gave me information and educated me so I can make an informed decision to say I can do this and I can't do that. So before I assessed and I left, I actually had to come in and say, what are my shortcomings? So Karen mentioned that she had to go in, and Karen did the work and she researched the writing and all that stuff, proposal. So anything that we work on it together, but Karen does the heavy lifting. Why? Because she's good at it. So if I'm going to come in and I'm good at building the relationships, then I'm going to come in and we're going to work in unison, because that's the one thing. You cannot be a solopreneur and do this by yourself. You need to have other people. You need to have a team, because what you want to do is that you want to enter the marketplace and be successful. We want nobody to fail.
100%. Why get in it to fail, right? You're going into it to, offer your product and service to the to the marketplace. And you do that because you want to be profitable and successful. So I'm hoping that as far as it goes with the federal marketplace, that you're taking note of that web address, sam.gov, to understand where the current contract opportunities are. And if you're looking for ancient data on how the government spent its money in previous fiscal years, the Federal Procurement Data System is still up, fpds.gov, and you can search by NAICS code, and there's a tremendous amount of information in there, like 20 years worth of contract information, which is very helpful to help you understand who buys what you sell, what kind of quantities, how often, who the prime contractors are, because I know there's a question about subcontracting. So is it still $750,000, Janelle, the threshold for the contract where subcontracting is required? I think so on construction.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so certain contracts contracts over a certain level have to have subcontractors. That break out into the groups that were shown on the first slide. And then a marvelous little database that I just don't have enough time to play with and really, wish I could, is usaspending.gov. Altogether, usaspending.gov. And that is a robust database of data, lots and lots of information about how the government spends its money, from contracts to grants. All kinds of beautiful information comes out of there to help inform your research and your efforts at getting a contract. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I
Janelle.
want to add something real quick. So when you're looking at that past information that Althea was talking about, many people think that the only thing you have to do to win a government contract is just be the lowest bidder. That's changed over the last several years. And it's now not only the lowest bidder, but hopefully most technically competent. So you need to also, like I said, look at your team, as Orlando said, look at where your weaknesses might be, see if there's something where you need to bolster it in some way to make sure that you're presenting not only the best proposal, the best team, the best financing package, the best this, that, and the other thing, because they're looking at all of those on all those levels when they're looking at awarding a contract these days.
Yeah, and I will jump in and reiterate all of that plus add, which is, as you're sitting in this seat going, where do I begin? It is overwhelming. So if you feel overwhelmed right now, that is normal. The only way out is through. Okay, so jump in. sam.gov is going to show you the current listed federal contracts or any that were recently closed. It has a whole lot of stuff in there. That's the place you go to register as a vendor. No need to register. Don't do anything yet. Do your homework first. Look to see what's been posted that's similar to what you sell. So I would go in there and just do keyword searches under the contracts. You want to look at current solicitations or recently closed solicitations or pre-solicitations. Sometimes these are called RFIs and the solicitations are called RFPs or RFQs. So you kind of got to start to learn the language in order to really even navigate. And there are tons, I'm talking tons and tons of videos on YouTube that can help you navigate sam.gov, figure it out, figure out how to do your searches effectively, set up search, how do you call that? Saved searches, where it will email you every day if something new is found. Now, I will warn you, sam.gov is not Google. You're not going to type something in and bam, you get the exact thing you were looking for. I wish if I had a magic wand or the contract to redo sam.gov, just saying, it could be like that, but we deal with what is. So Sam takes some patience. You're going to look for a needle in a haystack. You're going to search for a keyword. You're going to get contracts and solicitations and pre-solicitations that have nothing to do with your keyword. I don't know why. I don't know who built it. Send them love. because they need it. Let's just call it what it is. Dig through there, keep searching, find things that you think you could bid on. It's not always going to be a perfect match. For example, my first contract was to put content on a website for NIH, National Institutes of Health. We do content all the time. We do written content. They also wanted video content. We do a little bit of video content, but it wasn't a big part of what we do. It wasn't a stretch for me to say, okay, we'll bring on a videographer and a video editor and make sure that we could fulfill that portion of the contract rather than just making a no bid decision because I couldn't do 100% of it. So keep an open mind is what I'm saying. Look at it with the lens of what's out there and could I do this? Could I show up looking good enough that they would award it to me? So the other two sets of bullet points on here are for state and local. Some of you are interested in state. The website is there, and I believe Lorna also put it in the chat. Thank you. Go through. My Florida marketplace is not nearly going to have as much information as SAM.gov. The federal government is the largest buyer in the world. Okay, so the state stuff is tiny compared to the overwhelm that happens with federal. And then for local, I put in this PowerPoint my county. I live in Palm Beach County. Whatever county you're in, whether it's Miami-Dade, Broward, Monroe, or wherever you are in the state, go ahead and search for your county name and purchasing or procurement, and you will find the correct website. And then you can search and see, same way that I'm telling you with federal, you'll see what is open, that's open for bid right now. Some counties will show you things that are closed, some will not. You can request, if you go to the county small business office, you can ask them about contracts with what you sell, what they've bought previously. Same thing goes with city. I put West Palm Beach, that's where I live. Search for Miami-Dade, search for whatever city you're in, Homestead, Jacksonville, it doesn't matter. Search for that plus procurement. You're going to find whatever that website is. You're going to look for what contracts are open and any that are closed that they list there. You can reach out to the small business offices, and also there's third-party websites, FedBid, FedConnect, my bid match. There's a lot that I use that also list those city, county, and even sometimes other types of RFPs and RFQs and RFIs. So it's a lot of digging. I'm not going to tell you that this is easy. You want to see USA spending. You want to see the forecast. Like when I decided, hey, a big agency for me is NIH. I wanted to see what they were forecasting to spend next year, because proactive, I want to get ahead of it. So all of these things are work, but if you're willing to put the work in, because so few are, and you can show up looking good, you can get the contract. Persistence, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
100% agreement. So Althea, thank you for that high five. Oh, it's a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to just reiterate what Dr. Vieira said about the federal government being the world's largest buyer of goods and services. It's like $800 billion plus. And you're going to see a higher number in USA spending because the government does, not all the spending that the federal government does is on contracts. You know, we do give away money to other countries. So when it comes to goods and services, though, it's like an $800 billion marketplace. And so what I love about this slide is that it's sharing with you that there are other options than the federal government. The state and local governments have meaningful amounts of money. So for example, I just found out, I think last week, FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, District 7, for example, like 6 counties over at the northwest corner of my district, has a $4 billion budget right now for construction contracts in just those 6 counties. And then they're gonna get money for the Moving Florida Forward campaign in a couple of years. $4 billion is not chump change. I think, isn't that also it's like the budget of Miami-Dade County Public Schools for spending. To say nothing of the fact that Dade County Schools, Broward County Schools issued bonds to have even more money to spend on construction and renovation projects on their schools. So, there's money being spent out here beyond the federal government. And I always advise, look, if the federal sector, or rather the government sector, the municipal sector is new to you, go dip your toe in the local pool. See what that's like, because a lot of municipalities in the state of Florida have great desire to do business with businesses, small businesses in particular, who are located right there in their own backyards. Secondly, I will also say this: the market is a lot, while it's smaller in terms of dollars, it's also smaller in terms of who can compete for contracts. You have to understand, at the federal level, by SBA standards, over 99% of all businesses in America are small. Over. So you could be a small business in the federal arena and do 23 million in annual sales. At the local level, sometimes you're a small business up to $1 million, up to 5 million. You're a micro business at this other level. And so that really, if they have small business set-asides, then the universe shrinks a lot more than where the standard is 23 million federal sector, for example. So check out your local, check out your state offices of procurement. And again, they are very eager to certify firms to do business with them. And I was just on an event last week where Miami-Dade County and public schools were lamenting out loud once again how they have too few certified firms, and lots of the work they can't continue to set aside for small business, because while they even have a pool of certified firms, those firms don't compete or submit bids. And my takeaway from that is, hold on a second. Yeah, there are lots of contracts out there, but every possible person who could bid on a contract isn't at any given time. And so you can literally roll up on a contract and there's only 3 people competing for it. Now your chances have gone to 1 in 3 of getting the contract. And if the contract's big enough, you can also suggest an attempt to subcontract with the winner. So you're still a winner. That makes sense? Hope it did.
100%. And thank you. So if you notice in the previous slide, we talked about vendor registration. A lot of times there's contracts out there for the purpose of registering. So I am a vendor with a lot of the actual municipalities that I work with. So what certification does Orlando Espinosa with M&L Media have? 0. I don't have any certifications, because what I have gone after things that specifically does not require. And that's one of the key things that we want to let you know. There are certifications out there that you can go after, but you need to make sure that that certification will be an opportunity for an open door. It's not going to be a guarantee. Just because you are certified does not mean that it's going to give you an automatic contract. It just means that it will give you an opportunity when the government has specific contracts that they want entities to bid on. So one thing that I learned was also looking at, I've worked with entities. So Karen is an 8A certified business. She also has a whole bunch of other certifications. So if I'm going in and I'm going to go after a contract of sorts, I would rather team up with her. And we're going to talk about teaming in slide 6. But my goal is, how do you come in and work with people. So it has to make sense to you as a business owner, because it's not going to be an automatic. And this is why building the relationships with buyers is ideal, and it's important in order for you to come in and look at that. So I'm also looking at the time, be mindful. So Althea.
Really quick then, I really like that you talked about, you got this certification slide up and then you said, I don't have any of those. Why? Listen, certifications only matter to the people they matter to. Orlando is clearly doing business with people who don't care whether he's certified or not. And so he hasn't gotten any. But if you're going to be doing business with, say, me, and I care that you're minority owned or woman owned or veteran owned or in a hub zone or 8, then you better have what I want in order to do business with you. But it could very well be that you don't need a certification. And so you want to be thoughtful about who your target customer is before you start trying to collect certifications, because that could be a waste of time and money, which means it's a waste of money and money. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jonelle.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at the return on investment, right? I mean, if you're going and you want to get certified as a woman-owned business, SBA has a program for that, but there's also a self-certification as a woman-owned business. So you may or may not need that. That overall goal of 5% for women-owned business isn't only under the SBA certification program. It includes those that are self-certified as well. So it's very possible you could still be successful in the government arena. And as Althea said, 23% goes to small businesses. Almost every business in America is a small business. Not everybody bids on every single contract. So you could go in just knowing that you were self-certified as a small business. So certifications can be very helpful as long as there's someone out there that, as Althea said, is looking for that certification, and that they are actually putting contracts aside in those programs as well.
Thank you. And as someone that doesn't have certifications, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Vieira, who has plenty of certifications.
Yeah, so what I'll say on this very brief, Althea really hit the nail on the head, and so did Janelle. There's a lot of certifications. Learn what you're eligible for, and then figure out what you need in order to get the work. If I'm looking in SAM.gov and I am seeing that there's contracts that I think I can win, but they're set aside for hub zone, or they're set aside for women owned, or they're set aside for veteran owned, or whatever that is, 8A, if you are eligible for that certification, you really feel like you could win that contract if you had it, go after it. If you're having conversations with someone, somebody's asked in the Q&A how to get to the people that decide. So we're going to talk about procurement. We're going to talk about the program managers, the end users of what you sell, and how to find them. I think we're going to talk about that if we don't run out of time. So when you're talking to these people, if they go, oh, but if you were hub zone, I would give you a contract, go get your damn hub zone. But I wouldn't do it now if you don't know that you need it. That's my 2 cents worth.
And I appreciate it. And the one thing is that people are going to come in and put a price tag on these certifications and charge you a lot of money to help get you certified, when a lot of these, they're free, doesn't cost you anything. But the one thing that I will tell you is there is no guarantee that you're going to get a certification. Why? Because nobody can guarantee anything. That's why someone actually asked a question. So how do you get to know these people? So one of the key things is building relationships. There's a lot of events. There's a lot of events that are held throughout the US. There's some that are in person, some online. But what you need to do as a business owner, once you've assessed, once you look to see who buys, ask questions and go to events where you can go to matchmaking events, where you can actually contact people. The one great thing about the government is very simple, that they have to have their information out there, and it's available to the general public when it comes to emails, when it comes to contact information. For those of you that I put in my LinkedIn URL, so did Jonelle. If you have questions, we do that. And I will tell you that every time we say, connect with us, we'll be more than happy to answer questions. A percentage of 1 to 2 people do that. Why? Because those are the people that are hungry and those are the people that are want. But for a lot of people, doing business with the government becomes an afterthought. And then you sit back and go to another training, another workshop, and then you get all excited. But the one thing that I will tell you is that I have built relationships with the government by having a dialogue and a conversation and making sure that they realize that I see them as a person who can open up a door or give it or provide an opportunity. Althea.
Yeah, so I know we don't want to spend too much time on this, so I would just simply say, look, when you meet me, know what you want to say. Tell me what you want from me. You can do the pleasantries, of course. Don't be rude. But what do you want from me? If I'm a contracting officer, what do you want from me? But more importantly, if I'm a contracting officer, what do you have to offer me? I'm the customer. What I want is paramount, not what you want to give me. Okay. So, because what you want to give me benefits you and your business. I want to have a benefits-based conversation about what I'm going to get from listening to you, from taking your product or buying your service. Okay. So really get that into your mind that the person who works for the government is your customer. And remember, I'm going to be thinking about how you're my customer. Okay, me, Althea, and Janelle, because we're in the marketplace to help you. But a contracting officer, that's not why they're in the marketplace. So really important to understand who you're talking to, what your value add is. So yes, for the 45th, 100th time, perfect your elevator pitch. Have a 20-second one, have a 1-minute one, have a 3, just be able to talk about what your product or service is and the value you bring to my enterprise as for as much time as you have and as little time as you have. And make sure it's compelling. Practice it, please. But don't, I meet so many people who take forever to get to the point. Don't do that. Everybody's time is valuable, including your own. Remember that. Thanks.
Thank you. Did anybody want to add anything to this?
I want to
Karen?
add, you know me, I want to add a lot, but I'm
No,
going
I know.
to keep it short. Where I began for federal specifically, as I was looking through sam.gov, I was seeing things that were closed that I could have bid on. I was doing my research in FPDS, who got it, et cetera, et cetera. How long is the contract for? Is it a 3-year or 4-year or 5-year? The government, federal government specifically, but other types of government do give very long contracts. That's one of the benefits. And so as I was doing that research, I was compiling my own little spreadsheet of, okay, I see this contract, we could go after that. Here's who the contracting officer is. Here's the name, email address, phone number. I now have a spreadsheet with hundreds of contracting officers' information as I've gathered from different solicitations I've seen, whether I bid them or didn't bid them, but I know it was something I could do in some sphere that I belong in. I have their contact information. I can reach out. I can ask a question. Will they always reply? They will not. Are they supposed to always reply? They are supposed to. Are they super busy and get hundreds of emails a day? Yes, they do. So be patient, follow up, be persistent, be kind. These are people. They have a lot on their plate, especially federal procurement officers. There are so few of them compared to how many they used to be, a decade ago. But the government is buying more than they were a decade ago. So just keep that in mind. They're busy, they're overwhelmed. They're just people too. They have personal lives and stresses and all the stuff that you have, they have bills and kids that won't behave. So just keep that in mind as you're sending your marketing, that these are just human beings, right? Reach out, be persistent, but not annoying, be kind, ask, like Althea said, ask your question, get to the damn point. They have 10 other emails to reply to this minute. So that is my strategy when it comes to reaching out specifically to buyers to ask questions, but there's so much more I could go into.
Yeah, and thank you, Karen and Jonelle. And we got 2 more slides, people, so be patient
I
with us.
know, I'm gonna go quick.
No, you're good. Go.
I wanted to springboard on the timing issue. Karen mentioned that, there are certain contracts that are written for a long period of time, usually 1 base year and then up to 4 multiple years after that. So if you need to know that as well, that research that you're going to do not only tells you who's buying your product, but when they're buying it and how much they're buying it for. So you need to know all of that information to make it effective, because if they've already put a 5-year contract in place and you start to talk to them about wanting to do something on that contract, they're not going to talk to you. They're not going to listen to you because they've already put that in place. This is your time now to start doing, again, more research for when we start that on-ramp for a new contract, and working on ways to differentiate yourself and the product or service that you provide to the government, so that you can be unique and you can offer something that maybe the previous or already assigned contractor doesn't offer.
And thank you, Jonelle. And I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this because I think that this is one of the key things for a lot of you that feel overwhelmed. This is where relationships play a vital role, where you can come in and create some type of joint venture to work with someone that's either already doing business with the government, okay, or that has the potential. This is why it's extremely important when you network, when you go places, when you see, listen, last week, there were a couple of events that were already there. I know the city of Miami had an event where they actually talked about procurement. I know that throughout the state, there's other events. I know that in the past, we've done events with the USPTO office. There's certain things out there and certain entities that you can start building relationships with. But the one thing that I will be very candid and let you know as a business owner, for me, I don't have to be in charge. I don't have to be 51%. Someone else can be 51%, because that doesn't mean that we can't do the job effectively together. But that's why it's extremely important that you understand that there are opportunities out there. So when you go out and speak, make sense, build relationships with people that may not be procurement officers, but maybe it's businesses that are already doing business with the federal government. So I want to spend a little bit more time on this before too. So go ahead, Karen, Dr. Vieira.
So a lot of times what you'll hear with government is you can't work here if you've never worked here. What do I mean by that? Because that sounds crazy. I word it that way because it felt crazy to me when I first arrived. What do you mean I can't work here if I've never worked here? How do I get a shot? This is how you get a shot. Meet someone that works with the agency that you want to work with. Now, with that said, I was told you cannot work here if you haven't worked here, and I broke that rule. Somehow I showed up looking really damn good and they gave me my first contract. That does not always happen. So find someone who's already working where you want to work. When I get on these types of events, guess who I want to meet? Not just the speakers. I want to meet the other people in the event. I want the attendee list, and if they're not publishing it, I literally will sit there and either handwrite or type it so that I have the participant list, and I will go into LinkedIn and connect with every single one of them. If you have an IT business and you work for the federal government, especially if you work for CDC, NIH, FDA, those are agencies I work for, I want to meet you because I could be a subcontractor to you. So I'm just trying to give you ideas. There's ways to partner. You're selling a product that might be complementary to something that somebody else is selling. Meet them. You need to meet as many people that are working for government as you possibly can. Make that your mission. Start meeting each other right now. Go.
Interact. How many of you actually put your contact information in the chat? How many of you actually were talking and promoting Jonelle?
No, you can finish your sentence.
No, that's it. No. I saw you on mute and I'm like, nope, she's got better things to say than I do.
What I was going to say is that one thing that I never thought about before, I got deep into the government contracting part of this, was understanding we've had questions about how do I meet the people that are making the decisions, people who are writing the contracts, the end users, things like that. I think that the teaming and the subcontracting are excellent ways to do that. Because I got to tell you, if a prime is getting a contract and they're hiring subcontractors to do the work, a lot of times it's the subcontractor that's on site They're the ones that are talking to the contracting officer representative, the core. They're talking to the end users. They get to be known. If you go for a contract, the other thing is if you go for a contract and you don't get it, you have a right to ask for a debrief. You know, that can be helpful information on how to write your next contract. But again, it gets you in front of someone who understands that you really want to crack the nut that is government contracting. You want to work with this agency. So any FaceTime you get with people that are doing this, those are your avenues of opportunity to make sure that people know that you exist and that you're willing to put in the research and the work to be able to get this done.
Right. Thank you, Jonelle. Althea, anything you want to add before we close out?
Yes, so on just really quickly on that slide there, you see where it says finding potential partners? Use that database, that DSBS database. By the way, you can export from that database and you can export from Federal Procurement Data System. I mean, it's going to be a big file, but if you love Excel, and even if you don't, you can manipulate that data to, you know, e-blast. But come on now, be mindful, right? Because you don't want to end up in the spam folder. So be mindful about your approach to finding potential partners. Research them, don't just blast them. You know, there's all kinds of engineering, right? So if you're a chemical engineer, are you blasting the, somebody help me, I don't know, what other kind of, the underwater guy engineer? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That probably doesn't even make sense. But, you know who you're reaching out to. And again, what your value proposition is so that you can really begin to make some inroads on subcontracting. But people, remember, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. You've got to be known. You got to be likable. If you're not likable, don't go. Send your likable employee, okay? And be trustworthy. Do what you say you're going to do. And then people will want to do business with you.
Yeah, that's why I go, because I'm likable. So with that being said, listen, we've got part 2 tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about writing that winning proposal. We're going to provide more information, more resources. Thank you to everybody that's actually connected on LinkedIn. One of the key things is, so we've got 3 minutes left. So I want to give each of you 1 minute for parting words. This will be available, the presentation. You will receive the email. You will receive by 2 o'clock a link to tomorrow's webinar. And then make sure that you go back and research some of the stuff that we've shared with you on today's topic. So I'm going to go to this, have a game plan, really simple. All of our nice faces again. And then our contact information is in the body of the email. So go ahead, Althea.
I wanted to hit on that last bullet on your last slide about having a game plan. Track your success. You get what you measure. So don't take a shotgun approach to this thing. You know, if you reached out to the Department of Navy, write down who, you know, keep it in a database. Who did you talk to, when, about what? What's their contact information? How did it go? So-and-so's not nice. Okay, well, you might want to remember that, 3 years from now, when you want to approach the Navy and find out she doesn't work there anymore, right? So you go back. So track your success and your failures. You learn the best from your failures, not your successes.
Thank you. Dr. Vieira, last word of encouragement.
Yeah, be organized, be persistent, do not give up. This is not a short-term thing. I won my first contract after bidding what I said was the last time, because I was like, I've sent so many and I haven't won them, and this is the last. I give up. And I won it. So apparently it was not my time to give up. Do not give up. Just keep improving, keep getting better, keep attending things so you're learning, keep talking to people, meeting people who are government contractors, ask them a ton of questions. Reach out, I'm willing to answer your questions. I'm not great with email. I won't ever sell you dreams. You email me, it might get lost if it's not about money, but I will try to reach out. If you message me on LinkedIn, I usually reply. All right.
All right, thank you. Jonelle.
I'm gonna steal your thing, Orlando. It doesn't have to be a lonely journey. There are resources out there. If you don't know who they are, you've seen us today. You know that you're connected through the SBDC at FIU. You know, people are here that can help you. You just have to ask the question. We understand you don't know what you don't know. We may be able to help you and make some connections for you.
Right. And my piece of advice, very simple. I will give you permission to be shy when it comes to yourself, but you cannot be shy when it comes to your business. If people don't know that you exist, how can they buy from you? So with that being said, tomorrow we will be back at the same time. We're going to have more content, more information, and we will be answering more questions. So with that being said, make sure you take advantage of everything. All the information is there. So thank everybody, and we will see you mañana. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Orlando.